Operant conditioning is a type of learning where the consequences of your behaviors shape your future behaviors. Those consequences may be either a reinforcement or a punishment. We will be focusing on the following terminology. After each example, we'll see how the terminology can fit into this chart as to whether a stimulus is being presented or removed, and whether the subsequent behavior increased or decreased. For our first example, we have a student who is working diligently on her schoolwork. As a consequence, the teacher could show his appreciation for her hard work by providing positive feedback. In return, the student continues to work hard. In that example, we had a stimulus being presented, which caused behavior to increase. Therefore, we would call this positive reinforcement. For our next student, we again have a good student who is working diligently on her coursework. As a consequence, he could remove some of her work, such as dropping a quiz or removing a homework assignment. This would make her happy and want to continue to work hard. In this example, a stimulus was removed, that was the quiz or the homework assignment that was being removed, in order to cause the student's good behavior to increase, which would be negative reinforcement. For our third example, we have a student who has fallen asleep during class. As a consequence, the teacher may get upset and verbally scold the student to wake him up. The misbehavior of sleeping would then stop and the student would start to focus on classwork again. In this instance, a stimulus was being presented, the verbal scolding, in order for the misbehavior to decrease. So we would call this positive punishment. In our last example, we have a student who is using their cell phone during class. As a consequence for this misbehavior, the teacher could go over to the student's desk and confiscate the cell phone. The student's misbehavior would decrease and they could focus on their work again. So, due to a stimulus being removed, the misbehavior decreased, which would be negative punishment. And those are the basic types of reinforcement and punishment.
Students, any questions? Yes, ma'am. Start, please. Ma'am, would we know more about the theorist B.F. Skinner? Yes, I should explain you about his life.
Burrus Frederick Skinner, commonly known as B.F. Skinner, was an American psychologist, behaviorist, author, inventor, social philosopher. He was the Edgar Pierce Professor of Psychology at Harvard University from the year 1958 until his retirement in 1974. Skinner was born in Pennsylvania. His father, William Skinner, was a lawyer by profession and also an aspiring politician. His mother was named Grace Skinner. His brother, Edward, 2.5 years younger, died at age 16 due to cerebral hemorrhage. He became an atheist after his Christian teacher tried to assuage his fear of hell described by his grandmother. After earning his undergraduate degree, he decided to become a writer, a period of his life that he would later refer to as the dark year. While working as a clerk at a bookstore, Skinner happened upon the works of Pavlov and Watson, which became a turning point in his life and career. Inspired by these works, Skinner decided to abandon his career as a novelist and entered the psychology graduate program at Harvard University.
Hi.
Hi.
What are you doing?
While he was at Harvard, a fellow student, Fred Keller, convinced Skinner that he could make experimental science from the study of behavior. This led Skinner to invent his prototype for the Skinner box.
What is this experiment?
The Skinner box experiment, which explains operant conditioning.
An operant conditioning chamber is a laboratory apparatus used in the experimental analysis of animal behavior. It was invented by Skinner while he was a graduate student at Harvard University. As used by Skinner, the box had a lever for rats or a disc in one wall for pigeons. A press on this manipendulum could deliver food to the animal through an opening in the wall, and responses reinforced in the way increased in frequency. By controlling this reinforcement together with discriminative stimuli such as lights and tones or punishments such as electric shocks, experimenters have used the operant box to study a wide variety of topics, including schedules of reinforcement, discriminative control, delayed response, punishment, and so on. Project Pigeon. Skinner took a teaching position at the University of Minnesota following his marriage. While teaching at the University of Minnesota and during the height of World War II, Skinner became interested in helping with the World War effort. He received funding for a project that involved training pigeons to guide bombs, since no missile guidance systems existed at the time. In Project Pigeon, as it was called, pigeons were placed in the nose cone of a missile and were trained to peck at a target that would then direct the missile toward the intended target. The project never came to fruition since the development of radar was also underway, although Skinner had considerable success working with the pigeons. While the project was eventually cancelled, it did lead to some interesting findings, and Skinner was even able to teach the pigeons to play ping pong.
The two pigeons are at either end of a small ping pong table. One pigeon pecks the ball as it comes toward him and knocks it toward the other pigeon. Other pigeon pecks the ball back across the table. If it goes past one pigeon, the other pigeon can eat, and if it goes the other way, the other pigeon eats. So that there is it's a real game. The pigeon is reinforced for a cross-court shot if that is what gets the ball past his opponent.